We can usually count on the Pac-12 to have good quarterbacks and high-scoring offenses. It's Pac-12 after dark, after all. That is certainly true in 2022 as the conference has a good group of quarterbacks returning. How do they stack up? Let's rank the quarterbacks in the Pac-12 for 2022. I'm Stephen Lasson of All CFB 365. Please be sure to subscribe and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at All CFB 365. Before we give our rankings, we need to give our criteria, or at least explain our rankings and what's to come. When we're doing this ranking, it's a projection to the upcoming season, so we're not just basing these rankings off of 2021 or career achievements so far. We're trying to project ahead to the upcoming season while also considering what quarterbacks have done so far. So it's a mixture between what quarterbacks have done so far in their career, a projection, and also take into account the changes around them. This could be offensive coordinator, this could be scheme, this could be the talent around them. So we're trying to take into account everything and not just base these rankings on what's happened so far. We're trying to project ahead and tell you what's coming this year in the college football season. At number 12 on our list is Brendon Lewis of Colorado. Last year was his first full year as the starter, and certainly it was a struggle for the young quarterback. He only had 2 games of more than 200 yards passing, not to mention just 12 overall touchdowns. Colorado had a lot of issues on offense last year. They struggled mightily, less than 20 points a game. Coach Karl Dorrell hoping that Mike Sanford, the new offensive coordinator hired from Minnesota, can help this offense take a step forward this year. Lewis is a dual threat player. He has some upside, but considering what happened last year with a new offensive coordinator, if he does not improve in fall practice, JT Shrout, the former Tennessee quarterback, could push him for the starting job. At number 11 on our list is Jack Plummer of California. He transfers to California after spending the last couple seasons at Purdue. He was Purdue's starting quarterback last year before being replaced by Aiden O'Connell. You can see there he's threw for over 3,000 yards during his career with the Boilermakers. California has a clear need at quarterback after Chase Garbers moved on at the end of last season. The big question for Cal this year is they just lose so much in the supporting cast. Only 2 returning starters on the offensive line. The top 4 receivers, top running back, all gone for last year. So Jack Plummer has been efficient in his career, 65% completion percentage, but under 7 yards per attempt. But that efficiency and his experience could pay off for a California offense that is a group in transition in 2022. Emory Jones of Arizona State takes the number 10 spot in our rankings. Jones was at Florida for the first couple seasons in his career. From 2018 to 2020, he played in 24 games with the Gators as a backup. He won the starting job last season. The good news was he finished 5th in the SEC in total offense, completed about 65% of his passes, and ran for over 700 yards. That dual threat ability was evident when he was a backup, and it showed up last season in a big way. The problem for Emory Jones was interceptions and just overall week-to-week and pass-to-pass consistency. But with Arizona State losing Jayden Daniels, coming into the year with offensive line and receiver question marks, they need a playmaker at quarterback, and Emory Jones has that type of potential. If he can cut down on the mistakes and be a little bit more consistent, he could be a much needed addition for an Arizona State team that needs a difference maker at quarterback this year. At number 9 on our list is the 3rd transfer so far in these rankings, and that is Michael Penix of Washington. He comes to Seattle after spending 2018 to 2021 at Indiana, and during his tenure with the Hoosiers, he had an offensive coordinator by the name of Kalen DeBoer, and Kalen DeBoer is, of course, now the head coach of Washington. So Penix getting reunited with DeBoer could really help his career, because you go back to 2019 when these two worked together. Penix had the best yards per attempt and the best completion percentage of his career. The bottom line for Michael Penix in his career has been this: he's talented, he has a good arm, he has shown potential in the time that he's been on the field, but he's had 4 seasons ended due to injury. So staying healthy is really the key here for Michael Penix in his development at Washington. He is battling Sam Heward and Dylan Morris for the starting job. Washington has 3 quarterbacks it can probably win with. Penix, having that experience before under Kalen DeBoer, is likely to pay off in him winning the starting job this year. Chance Nolan of Oregon State is the number 8 quarterback on our Pac-12 quarterback rankings. Keep in mind, Oregon State pursued transfer quarterbacks this offseason, including JT Daniels. They did not land one. That means that Nolan should be the starter going into 2022. He could be pushed by Tristan Gebbia in fall practice. Last year, Chance Nolan took over the starting job in week 2 of the season, averaged just under 230 total yards per game. Accuracy, mobility was solid, completed 64% of his passes, ran for nearly 300 yards, not to mention finished second in the Pac-12 in quarterback rating, and yards per attempt. So Nolan was really solid for Oregon State, did everything that they needed him to do. If there was one area that Oregon State needs him to be better this year, that is generating big plays. But everything from that Chance Nolan showed last year was solid. We have him at number 8 in our quarterback rankings, but that's more due to the depth at quarterback in the conference. We will stay in the state of Oregon for our number 7 quarterback in the Pac-12, and that is Bo Nix. Bo Nix transfers to Eugene after spending the last 3 years at Auburn. Unfortunately for Nix, he seemed to be on track for his best season at Auburn last year, but suffered a season-ending injury late in the year. He was over 60% completion percentage for the first time in his career. The yards per attempt was also at its highest in his career last season. So Nix showed some good signs under Brian Harsin. The question's going to be at Oregon, can he take that next step in development? The good news for Bo Nix, he's working under Kenny Dillingham, who worked at Auburn with Bo Nix in 2019. So there is some familiarity, not to mention he has a good and talented supporting cast around him this year, one of the better offensive lines in college football. So I think for Bo Nix, he should be healthy this year. He has some talent around him. If he can put all of those pieces together, this should be the best season of his career at the collegiate level. He will have to hold off a talented Ty Thompson for the starting job this fall. Bo Nix may not put up huge numbers, but he might be the right quarterback at the right time for new coach Dan Lanning this year. Jayden de Laura of Arizona checks in as our number 6 quarterback. And again, if Jayden de Laura is your number 6 quarterback in a conference, it is a conference that is stacked with options at quarterback this year. The bottom line really for Arizona is, after starting 3 different quarterbacks last year due to injuries, inconsistent play, they now have a difference maker in de Laura. He transfers from Washington State last year in Pac-12 only games. He led the conference in quarterback rating and yards per attempt, threw for just under 3,000 yards, and completed 63% of his passes. So the production was there. He's gained experience over the last 2 years. He knows this conference from being at Washington State. He will have to adapt a little bit because Washington State ran the run and shoot offense, now more of a pro style scheme. But I think if you're Arizona, you have to feel much better about your quarterback room than you did last season. De Laura, if he puts everything together with some of the pieces that Arizona has at receiver this year, he could contend for all conference honors. Tanner McKee of Stanford checks in as our number 5 quarterback for this season. No surprise, it started slow in his Stanford career. He played in 1 game in just 2020. That came after serving an LDS mission for 2 years after being in the 2018 signing class. But he quickly shook off that rust last year, completed just over 65% of his passes, led Stanford to an upset of Oregon through 15 touchdowns as well. I think when you watch Tanner McKee, you see the talent, you see the upside, you see the arm and the potential that he could have in this offense with all of the offensive line coming back this year, not to mention the talent that Stanford has at receiver. This is one of the better receiving cores in the Pac-12. So I think he can be the Pac-12's breakout star at quarterback this year. We know David Shaw likes to be physical, likes to run the ball, but I think the real strength of this team is Tanner McKee's arm and the receivers. If he puts it all together, all conference honors in a breakout year make a ton of sense for Tanner McKee in 2022. At number 4 on our list is arguably the Pac-12's most intriguing player for 2022, and that is Cameron Ward of Washington State. He is a transfer from Incarnate Word. He spent the last 2 years there. He was the top freshman at the FCS level in the spring season of 2020. Last year, threw for over 4,500 yards and 47 touchdowns. Also, he's playing under his former head coach, Eric Morris. Yes, that Eric Morris, who was a former Texas Tech receiver, recently was his head coach at Incarnate Word, is now the offensive coordinator at Washington State. So he's playing in a scheme that is very familiar. You watch his tape at the FCS level, extremely talented, and it should be a seamless fit. The only question with Ward is how fast can he transition to playing in the Pac-12. Of course, he's going to see teams and defenses that are much tougher than he saw at the FCS level. But all the talent, familiarity, everything is there for him to have a huge season, and Washington State needs a big year out of Cameron Ward if it wants to finish for second, third in the Pac-12 North this year. At number 3 in our rankings is Dorian Thompson-Robinson of UCLA. Things really clicked for Thompson-Robinson and Coach Chip Kelly last year. DTR put together his best all-around season. If you throw out the 2020 season that was abbreviated, that was the best quarterback rating, yards per attempt, completion percentage of DTR's career at UCLA, not to mention over 600 rushing yards. Also led the Pac-12 in total offense a game. So the production, everything that we had saw in limited time for DTR, he really started to put that together last season. Looking ahead to this year, UCLA with some transition in the receiving core and on the offensive line. So if UCLA can navigate those two questions coming into this year, number 3 might be too low for DTR considering the big step forward that he made last year. At number 2 on our list is Cameron Rising of Utah. Last year, the Utes got off to a slow start at 1-2, but Cameron Rising became the starting quarterback after that, and it made a huge difference just in the overall performance of this group. You could see it watching this team, what kind of leadership he gave, the efficiency, just the overall execution of the offense was better with Cameron Rising at the helm. He led Utah to the Pac-12 championship for the first time, made an appearance in the Rose Bowl. He also threw the fewest interceptions among full-time Pac-12 starting quarterbacks last year. So again, the difference was evident. The efficiency, taking care of the ball, executing Utah's offense at a high level. The big plays weren't necessarily there, with just 5 completions of 40-plus yards, but everything else clicked for Rising, and I expect him to take another step forward in his second year as the starter for Utah. Caleb Williams of USC ranks as our number 1 quarterback in the Pac-12 for the 2022 season. Last year, he began the season as the backup to Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, eventually replaced Spencer Rattler as the starting quarterback, and when Williams came in the offense, there was a noticeable difference at pushing the ball downfield. We saw the big plays in the exciting win over Texas. I think 7 completions of 50 plus yards. So that big playability was clearly on display last year. All the talent, all the high expectations that surrounded Caleb Williams coming out of high school. He was certainly on track to meet those last season, averaged 9.1 yards per attempt. So big plays, the talent, it was all evident last year. And now transferring out to USC to play under former Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley, it should be a seamless fit and a fast transition for him, not to mention the supporting cast at USC, especially at receiver with Jordan Addison transferring from Pitt to USC. Williams is throwing to one of the top receiving corps in college football. There's no doubt about it that even though he ranks number 1 on our list, there's certainly areas that he can improve on. He did struggle late last season against Baylor and against Iowa State, but still 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, a strong performance in limited time last year, a familiar scheme, and head coach with a track record of developing quarterbacks. That's why Caleb Williams is number 1 on our list in the Pac-12 for 2022. That is our quarterback rankings in the Pac-12 for 2022. As we said at the beginning, the Pac-12 is known for good quarterback play, high-scoring offenses, and I certainly think that this group of quarterbacks will live up to that and the hype and everything else this season. Of note, 8 of the quarterbacks here are transfers, 9 if you count Chance Nolan from the junior college ranks. So this group of quarterbacks has been at a lot of other places, but also this is a deep group of quarterbacks coming into this season, and it should make for a fascinating race overall in the Pac-12. If you agree or if you disagree with our rankings, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your opinion. I'm Steven Lasson. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, on Twitter. We are all CFB 365. We're getting you ready for the 2022 college football season.